My ex-wife walked out on me and our kids, all in pursuit of finding true love. Then she turned around and expected me to support her new family, so I made sure they learned a lesson they'll never forget. 8 years back, my ex, Marissa, and I ended our relationship shortly after our twins arrived. We hadn't been together all that long, just about 14 months, when she discovered she was pregnant. Both of us freaked out a bit and thought, maybe we should give this a shot for the sake of the kids. You know how it is, people always think a relationship will just fall into place because of the family connection. I'll admit, from the start, we weren't exactly on the same page when it came to compatibility. We had some good moments, sure, but it never developed into a deep, lasting bond. When she got pregnant, I thought maybe we could push through and make things work, but honestly, we were pretty mismatched, like chalk and cheese. Still, for the sake of the twins, we gave it our best effort for a while. Things were okay for a bit, we argued like any couple does, but nothing serious, and we co-parented pretty well. We weren't at each other's throats, and everything seemed to be going smoothly enough. Then she met someone new, someone she believed she could see a future with, and I got it, she wanted a fresh start, something different from what we had. She was honest with me about her feelings, and we both agreed that breaking up was for the best. I can't say I was heartbroken because, honestly, our relationship wasn't all that solid to begin with. We parted ways on decent terms, as far as breakups go, and after that, we settled into a steady rhythm of co-parenting. Things went fairly smoothly, well, as smoothly as they can with two people raising kids apart, sharing time equally, keeping communication focused on the kids, and making sure things didn't get messy. We both worked hard to prevent any tension from affecting the twins, making a real effort to give them time with both parents. Since we split everything evenly and didn't need child support, the kids had equal access to us both without financial issues. 2 years down the line, Marissa met her current husband. He wasn't someone she started dating immediately after our breakup, he was someone new altogether. Here's the thing, he had a daughter who was the same age as our twins. She told me about him and how serious they were getting. I wanted to support her in creating a smoother situation for the kids, so I was fine with them having another father figure around. But things started to change when she mentioned including her stepdaughter in the same way we included our twins. She casually suggested it would be nice if everyone did things together as one big family. At first, I thought it was harmless, just trying to blend families, nothing to get worked up over. But then it got weird when she started saying I should treat her stepdaughter like my own kid. Let me clarify, I have nothing against her stepdaughter, she's just a kid caught in all this mess. But Marissa seemed to believe that because our twins are connected to her through me, I was obligated to treat her stepdaughter the same way during all our activities. When I brought it up initially, I told her that while I understood her desire for inclusion, it wasn't my responsibility to act as a dad to her husband's kid, my main priority was being a good dad to my own twins. She kept pushing that idea, though, and I tried not to get frustrated because co-parenting is tricky enough, you're juggling your family's needs while trying to keep peace with an ex and her new partner. Still, the expectations just kept piling up. Things took a turn when she started expecting me to babysit her stepdaughter whenever I had my twins. For example, if I was planning a weekend outing with my kids, she'd call and ask if I could bring her stepdaughter along. I didn't mind helping out once in a while, but it became an expectation, like I was supposed to be a third parent for her husband's kid. And honestly, that felt unfair to both me and my own children. After a while, I noticed that whenever I planned something special for my twins, gifts or outings, it seemed like it turned into an issue about the other kids in her household. It was like I wasn't allowed to have quality time just with my own kids anymore. If I bought presents or set up a surprise day out, I'd hear complaints about how it wasn't fair if her stepdaughter wasn't included in the same way. Once she even got upset because I didn't spend as much on a gift for her stepdaughter as I did for our twins. That's when I knew I had to draw the line, to focus my time and resources on my own kids. I explained this to her, but unsurprisingly, it didn't go over well. She accused me of being selfish and not supporting her entire family. She wanted this big blended family image, but that wasn't what I signed up for. I told her that while I want my twins to feel they belong, I shouldn't have to parent kids who aren't mine just because we're connected through her family plans. She wasn't happy about it, but we managed to keep things civil enough for us to continue co-parenting. Since then, we've basically shifted into more of a parallel parenting setup, sticking to our own schedules with the kids and rarely doing anything together as one big family. We don't share plans or mix our kids from separate households much anymore. It keeps things simple and lets me focus on my own children without extra expectations or complications. Still, every once in a while, she'll bring up how I should feel guilty for not helping raise all the kids under her roof. Over the years, her family situation has gotten even more complicated. She and her husband had a baby together later on, and they also took in her husband's nephew. Now at her place, there are my twins, her stepdaughter, a step-cousin, and a half-sister, all under one roof. She tries to keep everyone feeling like one big happy family, but I've made it clear my role is with my kids, nothing more. It's complicated, no doubt about it. Every time I think we've finally reached some kind of stable place, something new pops up and throws things off course. But I've stood firm on my boundaries. I don't think it's unreasonable to focus on the two kids who are actually mine. Supporting her decisions as a mother is one thing, but being expected to parent everyone else in her household, that's another story altogether. Fast forward through all this, and that's when things really started to go off the rails. With all these extra members added into Marissa's household over the years, keeping boundaries clear has become tougher than ever before. Initially, we found a way to balance things so I could be present as a dad without getting too involved in her new family setup. But her expectations kept growing, and every few months, there was something new she wanted me to help with: her stepdaughter's needs, her husband's nephew's stuff, their baby. Seems like they kept layering in more people and more demands on me without asking if I was willing or able. Then came this whole school trip situation. The school my kids go to is pretty small. They're in a mixed-age class where they're with their stepsister and step-cousin, kind of unusual but manageable for that school. It didn't bother me at first. I figured it was just how they did things there. What surprised me was how this turned into an issue with their mom and stepdad about what expenses I was supposed to cover for the trip. This trip is a big deal. It's not just a quick field trip but an interactive museum visit with hands-on activities and workshops that are supposed to be amazing for the kids. It costs quite a bit, but my twins were really excited about it and I thought it'd be a great memory for them, so I paid for their tickets myself. When I told Marissa about paying for it, I expected her to be happy. After all, they were getting this cool experience. But instead, she went quiet for a moment and then outright said that if the other two kids couldn't go too, it wouldn't be fair. At first, I thought she was joking. There's no way she expected me to foot the bill for all 4 kids, but she was dead serious. She claimed it wasn't right for our kids to go on such an expensive trip if her other children couldn't participate as well. I stayed calm and told her that since those 2 were my responsibility, I was paying for them, and suggested maybe she and her husband could try fundraising or saving up money if it meant so much to include everyone else. But then she dropped this bomb: they need to think about how they're all going to feel watching your kids go on this trip while they're stay behind. It seems like the entire household is on the brink of falling apart if these kids don't all experience the same things. That's where things really started to heat up. Her husband jumped in, saying, "It's not fair to treat the kids differently. I'm all for fairness, but there's a limit." He made it clear that his stepsister and nephew aren't my responsibility, and I don't have endless money to cover everything. I looked straight at him and asked, "Rick, why do I have to pay for all the kids living in your house?" He gave me this look like I was the selfish one, and then he launched into a rant about how they're all supposed to be siblings and how I'm ruining their family. I get it, no kid wants to be left out, but at some point, they need to realize I'm not their dad. Marissa decided to bring these other kids into the picture and create a new kind of family unit. That's her choice. I'm not about to feel guilty for not footing the bill for every kid she brings under her roof. What really rubbed me the wrong way was when they made it sound like I was being cruel. They said this whole thing could damage the kids' relationships and that if our twins and their stepsister drifted apart over this, it'd be my fault. Come on now, I'm just a dad trying to do something nice for my own kids. But somehow, it's turned into this big family drama about what I'm not doing for kids who aren't even mine. I told Derek, look, I don't think it's fair to expect me to cover everyone's expenses. The trip was a treat for our twins, they're supposed to go during my time with them, and I want that for them. I don't see how that's unfair to anyone. But Marissa kept going, saying that if our twins go and the other kids don't, they'll feel less than, and I should care about that. Her husband even brought up family unity, saying if the kids start resenting each other, it'll all be on me. At that point, I'd had enough. This wasn't about family unity, it was just them making their financial decisions my problem. They're not struggling, both have decent jobs, and if this trip really meant that much, they could find a way to make it happen without relying on me. It's not my job to stretch my finances thin just because they won't or can't do it themselves. The back and forth went in circles, with them bringing up fairness and family values, but I stood my ground. I told them it wasn't my fault that they couldn't send the other kids, and I wasn't going to let them guilt-trip me into paying for it. That's where we left it. But I could tell by her face that this wasn't over yet. Honestly, I walked away from that talk feeling pretty annoyed and confused. No matter how much I explained that I wasn't responsible for all her family's kids, they just didn't get it. Somehow, focusing on my own kids became an issue, and now I'm the bad guy in their family story. It's exhausting, I just wanted to do something nice for my twins, and now it's blown up into this whole mess about fairness and togetherness. Feels like I'm walking a tightrope where every decision could spark another argument. All I wanted was for my kids to have a fun experience, but apparently that's asking too much. After that fight over the school trip, I figured that was the end of it, at least for now. I thought I'd made it clear I wasn't paying for all the kids, and I hoped Riss and her husband would drop it. But nope, they weren't done with another round of arguing. Then came something I didn't see coming, because it totally blew me away. A few days after that whole trip argument, I got a message from Marissa saying she wanted to meet up and talk face to face. I knew right away this wasn't going to be a friendly coffee chat, but I figured it's better to get it over with than keep arguing through texts. So, I agreed, and we set a time to meet at this small diner halfway between our places. When she showed up, right from the start, I could tell this wasn't going to be quick or easy. She had that serious look on her face, the one where you can tell they've rehearsed exactly what they're going to say. She sat down and started right away with, "I don't think you understand the situation." I told her I understood just fine, I'm paying for my kids, and that's all there is to it. But I let her go on anyway. She started talking about how I need to see the bigger picture, that this isn't just about a school trip but about setting a standard for how we handle things as a family moving forward. It seemed like she thought framing it as some kind of family principle would make me feel obligated to agree. She added, "This trip is just one example, in the future there will be other activities, maybe family vacations too, and we should be on the same page about treating all the kids equally." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Was she really suggesting that I should cover the costs for family vacations for all her kids now? I listened quietly, trying not to show too much reaction because I knew if I got worked up, it would only make things worse. Then she brought up the whole fairness argument again, saying, "Your kids get to do these things, but the others don't. It'll cause resentment, they'll feel left out." She even went so far as to claim it could harm the relationships among the kids, that growing up with this inequality might tear them apart. I sat there thinking to myself, and aren't there already kids from different families living different lives? Why is this my problem to fix? When she finally finished, I kept my tone calm and told her, "I get that you want all the kids to feel equal, but these aren't my kids, they're not my responsibility." I reminded her that we've been doing this parallel parenting thing for a while now, where she handles her side and I handle mine. But apparently, she decided that wasn't enough anymore. That's when she dropped the real bombshell. She said, "If you really cared about the kids' well-being, you'd want to support the entire family, not just your own kids." She went on about how I needed to show good faith by stepping up for the other children as well. I almost burst out laughing because it sounded so absurd, since when does supporting your own kids mean you have to take on everyone else's? At that point, I started feeling myself losing patience. I told her, look, I do care about my kids' well-being, that's why I'm willing to do things for them. But I'm not going to let you guilt me into paying for children who aren't mine. She didn't take that well. She got defensive and said, you're being selfish and not thinking about how this will affect the kids in the long run. I shot back, how is it selfish to look out for my own kids? You made the choice to bring these other kids into your household, that's not on me. Then her husband showed up, I don't know if she planned for him to just happen by or what, but suddenly he was at our table. He barely acknowledged me and went straight over to Marissa as if he was about to be the hero. He sat down and started in on me like he'd been waiting for this moment. He said, don't think you're being fair. We're supposed to be building a family here, and your actions are creating barriers. I looked at him, wondering if he really thought I was going to buy into this whole, we're all family, stuff when it came to my wallet. I told him plainly, sir, I'm here to support my twins, that's what I agreed to. You can't expect me to pretend all these other kids are mine financially. Then he threw in, well, if the kids start hating each other, that's on you. You're the one causing division. That really pushed me over the edge. I snapped back, you're the one pushing me to be a dad to kids who aren't even mine. I'm not the one complicating things, I just want to do right by my twins, and that's it. I didn't care if he thought I was cold. It felt like they were all ganging up on me, making me out to be the bad guy just because I set boundaries. Things got heated after that. Marissa started saying that if the kids grew up resenting each other, it'd be because I didn't care enough to support their idea of family. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, she was actually blaming me for future problems. I told her, Tiff, if that's how you see it, maybe you and your husband need to find a way to handle it yourselves. Don't put all of that on me. By then, folks in the diner were giving us looks, but honestly, I didn't care anymore. I was fed up with feeling like the bad guy just because I wanted to do something nice for my kids. It had all spiraled into this mess about what I supposedly owed her household, like they expected me to bankroll whatever came up for every kid under their roof because they decided to blend their families. I finally stood up and said, look, I've said what I needed to say. My focus is on my twins, that's not changing. If you want everything to be equal, maybe you guys should look at what you're doing instead of what I'm doing. I'm done being the bad guy here. With that, I walked out feeling a mix of frustration and relief. It was clear that no matter what I said, they weren't going to understand. As I headed out, I could feel their eyes on me like they were waiting for me to give in, but I was done. After that crazy conversation, I thought maybe things would settle down, maybe Marissa and her husband would get the point and drop it. But of course, I should have known better. The whole thing didn't just fade away, it actually got worse. A few days later, I started getting lengthy texts from her family members. It began with her sister, who's usually pretty laid back and doesn't get involved in our issues, suddenly texting me about how important it is for the kids to feel like part of one big family. She kept saying things like, if you really cared about your kids' happiness, you'd be willing to do this for them. It felt like she was hinting that I was in the wrong just because I didn't want to cover expenses for her sister's stepchildren. I tried to brush it off, thinking she'd dropped the subject, but the messages kept coming, and they became less polite. What started as subtle hints soon turned into outright accusations, with her calling me selfish, stingy, and failing to see the bigger picture. They made it seem like I was tearing their happy family apart simply because I didn't want to pay for a trip for kids who aren't even mine. Her family acted like I had declared war on them all of a sudden. Then things took a turn for the worse. Marissa's mom called me out of nowhere. I hadn't talked to her in a while, so I was surprised to see her name pop up on my phone. I figured she wanted to discuss the twins or have a calm talk about everything. Instead, she launched into a lecture about how things should be. She said, if you just paid for all the kids, this wouldn't be an issue. You need to think about how much better it would be if you were more involved with all of the children. That's when I felt my patience really slipping away. I told her, with all due respect, those kids aren't my responsibility. I'm doing right by my own kids, and that's what I agreed to. But she kept going, insisting, a good man steps up and takes care of the whole family, not just his own. I was stunned. I tried explaining that while I want the best for my twins, that doesn't mean I have to financially support every kid or girl brought into the household. I said, I won't feel guilty for taking care of my own children and setting some boundaries. She wasn't listening at all. The conversation just spiraled downward as she kept repeating herself about my duty as a father and how the kids would suffer otherwise. She played the guilt card hard. By the time it was over, I was done. I told her we weren't going to agree, politely ended the call, and that was that. But the pressure didn't stop there. Over the next week, it felt like the entire family was rallying against me. Marissa's brother left a passive-aggressive comment on one of my social media posts about being a dad, saying, real dads support their families no matter what, which was pretty obvious he wasn't just talking about my kids. I didn't respond, I deleted the comment and moved on, but it still annoyed me. I'm doing my best for my twins, and somehow that makes me the bad guy in their eyes. One day, I dropped the kids off at Marissa's place, and as I was heading back to my car, her husband caught up with me. No hello, no small talk, he just jumped right in. You know you're hurting the kids with this, he said. I was caught off guard, I thought we might talk things out, but he wasn't done. He went on about how my decision not to pay for all the kids is creating a rift between the siblings and how I should be more mindful of the family's overall dynamic. I told him, and I'm not hurting anyone, I'm taking care of my own kids. They're not the ones struggling here. He refused to let up, going on about how everyone in the family thinks I'm unfair and how eventually, the kids will notice and start resenting each other. It felt like he was putting all the weight of everyone's happiness on my shoulders. I finally told him, your family's opinion doesn't change what I'm responsible for. I'm not their dad, I'm here for my kids, and that's not going to change. At that moment, I found myself at a loss for words, feeling like no matter what I said, they just see me as the bad guy. That night, I sat there trying to process how things had spiraled into this mess. All I ever wanted was to support my kids and give them good memories, but instead, I was being painted as some cold-hearted guy who didn't care about family unity. They just couldn't seem to tell the difference between what's fair and what's not. I vented to a couple of close friends about the whole situation. They couldn't believe the pressure Marissa's family was putting on me. One friend joked that if they were so worried about the kids missing out, they could just chip in and pay for the trip themselves. That made me chuckle, but honestly, it was pretty frustrating because it felt like her entire family had decided I owed them all something, like I had to be an all-in parent for kids who weren't even mine just to keep the peace with people who clearly didn't respect my boundaries. The whole thing left a bad taste in my mouth. I started getting texts and calls from random family members, all pushing the same line, and I was just done with it. It seemed like they had this idea that I owed them something, and they weren't going to back off until I caved. By the end of that week, I realized there was no point trying to reason with them, they weren't really looking for an explanation. They just wanted me to go along with what they wanted. I told myself I wasn't going to let them wear me down. My kids are my responsibility, and I wasn't going to let this extended family guilt trip change that. It's crazy how all this started just because I was trying to pay for my kids' school trip, and somehow it turned into a battle over who's doing enough for the whole family. They might not like it, but I know where I stand. After that week of non-stop messages, friendly advice, and guilt trips from Marissa's family, I decided it was time to draw a hard line with my boundaries and stick to them, no exceptions. It was obvious that no matter how much I explained myself, they weren't going to understand. They were fixated on this big happy family idea, and I was the guy standing in their way simply because I refused to pay for every kid they brought into their home. First, I talked to my twins about the upcoming trip. I wanted to make sure they were still excited and didn't feel weird about it after all the drama, because I didn't want them feeling guilty. I kept it simple and told them, hey, I'm really looking forward to this trip for you guys, and I want you to know it's something special just for the two of you. I didn't go into all the complicated details, I just wanted them to understand it's okay to enjoy something for themselves. Both of them seemed relieved, they picked up on some tension, like kids often do, but they were genuinely happy and excited about going. That took a huge weight off my shoulders. I needed them to know they deserve nice experiences without feeling like they had to carry any responsibility for others. With that settled, I realized I had to set clear boundaries with Marissa and her family, not just vague ones about paying for my kids only, but a firm line they'd understand that couldn't be crossed. So I called her up, keeping my tone calm and straightforward. I didn't want another long argument. I said, my role as a parent is to support my twins. I'm here for them and doing my best to give them good experiences, but that doesn't include other children who aren't mine. I respect your choices and your family, but my financial responsibility stops with my twins. Of course, she wasn't happy about that. She started in on how the other kids would feel and how it's not fair for siblings to have different experiences. I let her talk until she started guilt-tripping again, then I stopped her. I told her, I understand how you feel, but this is my final decision, I won't pay for any expenses outside of our twins. If you want to figure something out for your household, that's your call, but you need to stop putting that pressure on me. There was a pause, probably a little anger from her side, and I could tell she was fuming. But I held firm. I could almost feel her gearing up for one last push, but she must have realized it wasn't going anywhere. Finally, she said something like, fine, I guess you've made your choice. Back then, she tried to make me feel guilty, but honestly, I didn't buy into it. By that point, I felt more relief than anything else because I was finally done explaining myself. After that, the tension died down, no more random messages from her family, no passive-aggressive digs, just silence. It was a little awkward, but honestly, it was good to have some peace and quiet. I think they finally realized I wasn't going to give in to their demands, so they had no choice but to deal with it. In the weeks leading up to the trip, I made sure to spend extra time with the twins doing normal stuff, going out for food, hitting the park, watching movies, just keeping everything feeling familiar. I wanted them to feel safe and happy, not caught up in all the adult drama, so I focused on them without any extra nonsense. It was refreshing to put my energy into them without the stress of all that tension. When the day of the trip arrived, I dropped them off at school that morning and they were all smiles, ready to go. Seeing how excited they were after everything that had happened made me feel pretty good. As they ran off to meet their friends, I experienced this deep sense of satisfaction, like, yeah, this is what it's really about. It's not about trying to make everyone happy or bending over backwards for people who don't even appreciate it, it's about giving my kids the best I can and showing them that setting boundaries is okay. Now, here's the kicker, the day after they left for the trip, I got a call from Marissa. I was expecting some sarcastic comment or a passive-aggressive jab, but instead, she asked if the kids had fun. I told her they did and kept my answer brief because I didn't want to get pulled back into old arguments. Then, she surprised me. She said, Saint, and I didn't agree with you, but I respect that you stood up for yourself and your kids. I guess I needed to hear that. I was stunned, didn't see her coming around like that. It wasn't exactly an apology, but it felt like she recognized maybe I wasn't the bad guy they'd painted me as. Since then, things have gotten a lot calmer, I haven't heard from her family, and it's like we've reached a new level of understanding. We might not see eye to eye on everything, but we've accepted our roles in the kids' lives. Honestly, I think this has made me a better dad because I don't keep second-guessing every choice, wondering how it might affect her household. Instead, I'm just focusing on what's best for my twins. Looking back, this whole situation taught me something pretty important. Sometimes setting boundaries isn't just about telling others no, it's about saying yes to your own peace of mind. I've learned it's okay to put my family first and not feel guilty about it. If other people don't understand that, that's on them, not me. Things are good now, my kids are happy, I'm happy, and it feels like we're moving forward without all that extra baggage dragging us down. I've made my stance clear, and honestly, even Marissa and her husband seem to respect it now. It's not perfect, there are bound to be bumps along the way, but I know I can stand firm and make decisions that are best for my family without getting lost in everyone else's expectations. A few weeks after things settled down, I thought I'd heard the last of their demands, but then Marissa threw something new at me. She started talking about how the twins' living situation at her place isn't as comfortable as it is with me. At first, I thought she was just venting, but then she kind of hinted that I should do something about it. Turns out, she wanted me to buy a house, not for myself, but for the kids to live in with her. She said it wasn't fair for the kids to keep bouncing between two different standards of living and that it might hurt their self-esteem if they felt like they were lacking at her place. I tried to process whether she was serious or just venting, but she was dead serious. She expected me to buy a second house for the kids to stay in when they're with her so she could live there too, all paid for by me. I stayed calm and asked her, "Does that make sense? You already have a home." She went off about how their current house is too small for a family her size and how that's affecting the kids' mental health. She kept going on about equal standards like I was supposed to fix every bad choice she made since we split up. When I told her that's not happening, she pulled out all the guilt trips she could, saying things like, "Don't you want the kids to feel as comfortable at my place as they do with you? It's unfair that you're not willing to give them a full living experience." She acted like I was some cold-hearted jerk just because I didn't want to buy her family a new house at my expense. At that point, I'd had enough. I told her straightforwardly, "Look, the twins have everything they need at your place. If you think they need a bigger house, that's something you and your husband can handle. I'm not responsible for upgrading your home." There was a moment of silence on her end before she snapped back with a parting shot, "Well, if the kids only feel like they have a real home when they're with you, that'll be on you."